Welcome to Homeschool Your Way. I'm your host, Janna Cook, and Bookshark's community manager. Today, I'm joined with Karen Barge. She is a professional illustrator and now teaches online classes at Sunny Art Academy. We're going to be talking about why homeschool parents need to teach art, and I'm super excited to jump in and introduce Karen to you today. Hi, Karen.
Hey, how are you guys?
We're so happy that you're here. I know that electives are one of those things that homeschool parents love to talk about, but find it sometimes very hard to implement. So, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us exactly what Sunny Art Academy is?
I understand completely how they feel. And I've met too many parents that go, oh my gosh, I don't know a thing about art and don't know how to even get started. And that's why there is a Sunny Art Academy, because I've been an art teacher for over 30 years. I've taught people from kindergarten or preschool all the way up to adults that were 85 years old. And I love teaching. And that's where I come in and all the videos come in. I can just pop into your living room or kitchen, wherever y'all want to do art, and you turn me on. And if I go too fast, then you can pause the video and keep going. I also offer Zoom classes where I get together and answer lots of questions. And I start from the beginning. I have a whole series of art curriculum, starting with line and shapes and all the rest.
And so for those who don't know, these are classes that you offer online. It's a curriculum that you created from your years of experience, not only being a professional illustrator, but also an art teacher. One of the things that you created and blogged about were the reasons why homeschool parents need to teach art. So to me, I'm like, okay, I know I probably should teach art, but need to teach art. So I really am excited to just kind of get your ideas behind this need, because I just feel like it's one of those subjects that gets pushed to the side for a lot of homeschoolers.
So the need part is, when you're writing, you can be creative with writing. With math, a lot of times it's not a lot of creativity with math. It's, you have your multiplication tables and they don't change. But I believe that, art gives your child a way to express themselves and also to expand their mind to more than just, I don't know, just 1 + 1 = 2. And I know reading can help that, which is great, but art allows a child, well, even in a parent, to have confidence and learn about, boost their confidence about other things. And it's fun. It's just downright fun to go and to paint and draw and create. That's really fun to create. I even had a class where we created a story and then we illustrated the story as a book. And so that's something. It was a camp. It was a week-long camp, and we had this incredible, everybody had books at the end of it. And the art expresses what you're trying to say in the words of your, whatever it is that you're writing. So I think it's very important.
I don't think anyone would argue with you that art definitely helps creativity. And in a world where there is just so many opportunities for us to be creative, as a parent who is uncomfortable with art, explain to me how decision making can be improved if I take the time to teach my child some art.
Well, decision making and problem solving is so critical for every aspect of your life. A child is going to decide whether they're going to cross the street or not. A child is going to decide whether they are going to play with a friend down the street or not. Decision making and problem solving is very critical for every aspect. Decision making in art is you get to decide, does this color go with that color? Does this drawing need color or not? One of the classes that I teach is how to create with geometric shapes, how to create a robot. And I give examples of stuff like Iron Man. He's all made up of geometric shapes, but nobody really thinks about that until you break it all down. And the decision making is so important, putting the shapes together to create something greater than what a square is or a circle is. So that's one of the classes that I think is very important with learning how to make decisions to create more than what you already have in the very beginning.
And it sounds like it's a great space for safe decision making, right? So, like, I have teenage girls that are thinking about college, and you want to talk about some major decisions that need to be made as they're entering their senior year of high school. Here is a space where if you choose to use a circle, it doesn't have lasting consequences. I
It
can switch
doesn't.
it out for a square, right? I mean, it gets them comfortable with the idea that once you make a decision, things can be changed. It has a different outcome, but it's not the type of decision that has lifelong implications.
You're exactly right. And you know what? When you're talking about the decisions making, in college, if you haven't already gone through basic decision making, when you get to the college decision making, you can get completely frozen. Your child can be completely frozen and can't make a decision. I think that's something my daughter just got out of college, and that was one of the things that a lot of her friends, they just did what their parents told them to do, and now they regret it. So because they couldn't make a decision, they didn't feel confident enough to make a decision. And if you make the wrong decision, you try to correct the decision before you get too far in the college world because of the cost of college these days, right? So
Yeah, I think that it's not only college students, but I see that even in my children when they were younger. It was like they froze. It's like they didn't know. It was like, okay, well, I just asked you what you wanted for dinner. I mean, and as a parent who does the majority of the cooking, that's a great example of like, okay, I don't care what your answer is, but I need a decision. And as an adult, like I get decision fatigue. I'm like, oh my gosh, if I have to make one more decision. So finally, when I sit down at a restaurant and I get to make a decision that solely just affects me, I don't even know what to do. I'm like, somebody just pick my dinner for me. I'm done. So you're saying art is a great way to help exercise that in a safe environment so that they can build that muscle for later on when it's going to have lasting implications.
absolutely. And that's what's nice about homeschool and making decisions at home versus being in a classroom. Because then if you're in a classroom, you have, I taught classes with 40 kids and find out that the kids copy other kids instead of making their own decisions, which sometimes it's good to copy because, you learn from copying, but I think it's better for a child to be able to make their own decisions for themselves. I think you grow better. I think it's better, across the board to be able to not be influenced by everybody around you. I mean, especially if it's a bad influence. So you don't want that to happen either. So
I was just
I think it's
talking
safe.
I was just talking with some coworkers about online interaction, and we were saying that when you're not 100% confident, you're not going to make a comment on a post. Typically, I mean, I'll speak for myself. I'm not going to make a comment on a post if I am not 100% sure about what I'm saying. So I can see how that could relate in the art world. If I'm not confident in what I'm doing, I'm not going to go do a sip and paint. I never have. I'd love to do it one day, but I don't feel comfortable. I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. It's going to look ridiculous, and compared to everybody else, I'm going to look like I'm a failure at art.
Well, see, and that's another thing that I teach in all my classes and my adult classes, because I've done paint parties out the wazoo. And what I try to explain to everybody is when I have a paint party, just like I do with all my classes, is I give a lot of examples. So then you don't have to do exactly what I do. You get to do whatever you want to do. You get to choose the colors you want to choose. If something doesn't work out, that's why I'm there. I'm going to help you work it all out. And so that's the other thing that I thrive on, is trying to give enough examples about everything, whether it's at a paint party, instead of we're doing these exact paint flowers, you can't do anything other than that, and it's the vase has to look, no. I usually have 3 or 4 different colors of flowers, and I teach how to put those colors together, different vases, different whatever it is. So then that way you can make your own decision and you can be happy with your decision. And if it doesn't work out, in my classes, I usually have that black, what is it, chalkboard paint. If you don't like what you're doing, you don't want it, we'll just chalkboard over it. Then you can use it as a chalkboard, at home or whatever. So
what I hear you say in art, there is no wrong.
There isn't. Oh my gosh. And anybody can learn. That's the other thing that I have found that has been so exciting about doing these art classes is the parents are doing the art with the children. And so the parents get the benefit of doing all that also. They get the benefit of being creative, doing something with the children, not just an activity with the children, but they get to do their own art, their own painting, their own boosting their own confidence. And it's relaxing and incredible. I mean, I used to work in commercial art full time, would be stressed out when I got home. My kid would want to sit down and do art, and we would do art together, and it just made it, oh, okay, I'm all relaxed now. I painted with my kid, and sometimes we did crazy stuff because I'm a crazy art person, and sometimes we didn't. We just did watercolor. It was very simple, castles or whatever. But it really changes your attitude and your whole being. It's so amazing to enhance your brain function and relax you. And I don't know, we're back to the whole, manual dexterity and everything for an adult or a child.
So explain that a little bit more for maybe someone who doesn't quite know what that term means. How can art help with manual dexterity?
So you're using your hands, and you're using your hands with a pencil or a pen. A lot of times when you're writing like this, and that's all you do is you write like this. Well, I also teach you can use the pencil in a different way. And also for children, they need to learn how to draw and paint and use their fingers. So the manual dexterity also has to do with that, like cutting up paper. One of my classes is all about cutting up paper and doing collage. Well, we cut up all kinds of little bitty pieces of paper. And that's so good for a child to learn to cut and use their fingers. And then we're gluing it all together where you're using something completely different. You're having this blob of glue, and you're putting on this little bitty piece of paper, and then you're putting it on your page. And all of that is part of manual dexterity. All part of that is the dexterity of your hands and holding the paintbrush. And then sculpture, if you want to go to the next level, the 3D stuff, mushing around in clay, or our favorite was Play-Doh. I love Play-Doh. We also, slime. When we were all into slime too, we made slime. And all of this is part of using your hands, using your brain, all of it connecting. And when it all connects, then you're a better person. And then you're just, everything about your body and mind all connect. And that's all part of growing up also. And I know a lot of adults that they know how to write with a pen or a pencil, but when they pick up a brush, it's like they try to write with their brush, and that's a completely different tool, just like scissors are completely different than a pen, you know? So you have to learn how to use each type of tool, just like a fork or a knife when you eat. That's all manual dexterity.
I don't think I'm the only one who homeschools their children that probably doesn't think about these other aspects of learning, because I'm so focused on reading and math and the writing aspect of it, that these are other important details and functions that our children really do need to be encouraged in the home to be working at. And as a parent who does not like messes and feels like life is messy enough, I'm sure I micromanaged my children's crafts in a way that they, probably they could have done so much more had I let loose a little bit. So let's talk about another aspect of what art does for homeschool families. You had mentioned before risk taking. So how does that fall into this need to teach art at home?
Well, the whole risk taking part is, when you think about it, you think about creating electricity. You know, if there wasn't any risk taking, then we would not have electricity today. And the same thing with computers. If there weren't risk putting stuff together and seeing if it works, there would be no computers today. We wouldn't be on a podcast if there weren't risk taking. So if you can't learn as a child how to take risk, and small risk, and I'm not talking about, a child being 5 years old and driving a car. That's not what I mean. But taking risk as a child and then building on that. Each time you build more and more and more. When you're talking about risk taking with paint, and you're putting two colors together, and what happens when you put them together? Ooh, that didn't work out, so you don't ever do that again. But you risked a little bit of time to create something, and so that's all part of creativity and learning, is taking risk.
When we're talking about risk taking, it really reminded me of this idea of growth mindset, because this is a great place for parents and students alike to really help grow out of a fixed mindset. Because I'm going to be honest, I'm not an artist. My daughter can paint beautiful pictures with just looking at a photo, and then she can put it on canvas. My husband's brother is an artist. We have his art throughout the house. And I always say I can barely draw stick figures. So in my mind, I don't even want to attempt it, because I don't have what I perceive as a natural ability to art like I see in other family members. But that really is an example of a fixed mindset. And so in risk taking with art, I'm getting this idea of really a growth mindset that, yeah, it's not going to look like a Picasso or a Rembrandt the first time I do it, but I have permission and safety to start doing this with my children, as teaching it and learning myself, so that I can kind of break out of my own fixed mindset, which I don't want my children to have. So I need to be a living example of that for them too.
Yes. And so something to add to that, when you talk about these other artists and you talk about your daughter painting, and oh my gosh, it's incredible. How many times did she draw or paint before she painted something that was gorgeous? That's what I really emphasize more than anything else in the whole world, is that if you don't think that you can paint or draw, but if you want to, you start with a sketchbook and you fill up the sketchbook, you draw a little bit, 15, 20 minutes every single day. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if you think that you don't have any talent, because art isn't all talent. It's practice, practice, practice. I mean, and the other thing about it is you have to want it. It's a passion. And if you don't want it, you're not going to practice, and you're not going to be Rembrandt. But I think about Rembrandt and you go, have you ever seen the hundreds of thousands of sketches that he did before he painted that painting? And then you understand it's practice, 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 practice. It's just like, and you got to practice every day, just like you brush your teeth. So I do believe that it's very important to get that mindset also, and that's part of the growth mindset. If you want it, you can do it. Anybody can. I'm completely convinced. If I can draw and paint after going to college, getting out of college, not being able to get a job because I wasn't any good and had to start over, anybody can. Absolutely anybody can. So something I learned when I first came to California, I worked for a company and I was part of a video game design company. And I went in and asked these guys, oh my gosh, they were amazing. Oh my gosh, the stuff that they did was just off the hook. And I go, how did you learn this? And so a couple of them came in and brought stuff to show me. Well, Karen, how many times do you draw every day? Well, I don't know. And all they do is draw every day, all day long. And they were obsessed with it. And they showed me some of their books from, 15 years before till today. And it's like, oh, so I'm where you were 15 years ago. And if I did what you did, then I can be you. And that's literally the way it is. It's growing and learning and practicing every day. So that's just very important. And sometimes people will go, well, I don't know what to draw. I don't, I go, oh, I don't know what to draw. I don't know where to start. So what I do is I have lists of ideas, like summer list, draw a popsicle, draw an ice cream cone. You can tell I'm hot and I want some ice cream. That's all I'm thinking about right now. But yeah, so that's very important. And I didn't realize how important it was either until one of the guys that I worked with, who is this phenomenal illustrator, worked on Toy Story, went on to work on Toy Story. He gave me a list of ideas of just draw all this every day, draw one of these. And it was a list, a palm tree and a gingerbread man. I'm like, what does a gingerbread man look like? I don't know. But that completely transformed me as an artist to be this professional illustrator that I am today. And it's that drawing every day, risk taking. You don't like it, turn the page, scribble it out. Ooh, that's terrible. Tear it out and throw it away. That's the way you become an artist. Practice every day.
I'm glad that we are dispelling this common misconception or myth about art. And I've talked to before with music and different things that we kind of classify as either you have it or you don't, right? Like you have children who struggle with math, but we don't say, well, that's okay. You don't need to work on that because that's just not your strength. It's like, no, we encourage our children to work on the things that they need to build. And I think that as an adult, it's harder to remember because I kind of gravitate towards the things that I'm good at now, and I don't really have to stretch myself if I don't want to anymore. But I think teaching art in the home is one of those ways that our students and children can see that we are open to learning something new, and they see us failing, which is really just a first attempt at learning, right? And so we can fail and show them that, look, this doesn't even look what I thought. I set out to draw a horse and it looks like a blob melting, right? But showing our kids that risk taking, like I'm not good at it, but the only way to get good at something is to keep doing it, instead of telling, our kids just think, oh, well, mom's good at this. But like you said, they didn't see the years that I had to build up to be good at that. And so art is just a great way for that to be cultivated in the home, for kids to see that we aren't perfect at everything. And while my children will tell you, I have 3 teenage girls, they will tell you immediately all the things that I am not perfect at. But and not only is it humbling, but it also keeps me more in that growth mindset that's like, you know what, you're right. I could definitely do better at that. I need to practice and be in that a little bit more. So I'm excited just to be talking about this and giving this idea to homeschool parents that here is a subject that maybe you don't feel like it's required, but it has so many more implications for the growth of your children and yourself and your family culture than simply just being able to paint.
Yes, and it helps you relax, and it helps your kids to relax. I know for me, math was not a strong suit for me. I had dyslexia and couldn't read. Um, so I was all stressed out, and I found that when I went and did art, I was able to go back and go to those, developmental classes that I had to go through to learn that I had dyslexia, and what do I need to do to compensate to learn to read, which was very difficult. And so, it was the art that got me there. So that's another thing that's great about art, because you don't have to be a famous artist to play with paint. It's so fun.
Well, I was just thinking about back to meals. Obviously, I'm hungry. I keep thinking about food, but as an adult who is responsible to feed not only myself but my family, I am no five-star chef. But every day I need to prepare a meal or meals for my family. And now I happen to enjoy it. And so I do branch out and take risks with different recipes, and sometimes they're a huge fail, and as a family we just go, okay, we won't do that again. But this is another great example of, just doing things in with repetition. Maybe it's not something that, your family needs to survive, like food, but maybe we do need to look at it a little bit more as a need, because it is an outlet that really touches all parts of education.
Yes, well, you're talking about food. If you work on your art skills, then your Christmas cookies are going to be dynamite. They are going to be off the hook, and people are going to want to buy them from you.
Well, I will let you know if that was a fail or not as we get closer to that season. But before we go, Karen, do you have a hack that you can share with our listeners?
Well, I believe that, if you paint a painting and oh my gosh, it just turned out awful. So you get out your hair dryer. If this is like an acrylic painting, you get out your hair dryer, you dry it really, really good, and you go and you get, I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's black paint. It's for chalkboards. And so I've taken paintings that I absolutely hate, and I have blacked them out, dried them off, and we use them as a chalkboard in our kitchen, notes to families, or, we just hang it on the wall. It's hanging on the wall right over there. And so that's what I do. That's a little hack that I do. And I did them in some of my paint parties. Like, I would bring it with me, and if somebody just absolutely hated their painting and didn't even want to go home, I've had people in tears. They go, okay, well, we could start over if you want, or I can black it out and you can take the box of chalk with you. And that's what we ended up doing. So,
Well, that gives some great relief to those of us who are apparently going to have a lot of chalkboards around our house as we venture into this subject of art where we're not incredibly comfortable. Karen, before we go, where is the best place for our listeners to find you?
it's called sunnyartacademy.com. And Sunny is the SUNNY artacademy.com. And you can find me there. And I'm at Karen. If you want my email, it's Karen at sunnyartacademy.com. If you want to email me, I'd love to hear from you guys. I really want to know what you guys want to learn, and I would love to come into your home and help teach your family through video. I am available for all of that, so please reach out.
The other thing that Karen has available to our listeners is a PDF. We only talked about 3 of the reasons why homeschool parents need to teach art, but she actually has 7 reasons why. So if you want to get the rest of those reasons, we will put a link in the show notes for you to be able to get that PDF from Karen at Sunny Art Academy. Karen, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me here. I think this is awesome. It was really great talking to you, and it was wonderful to know a little more about you too. That's awesome.
All right, you guys. Well, until next time, bye-bye.